So, rightfully so, to a certain extent, right? To a certain extent, Danny Garcia is going to is getting a lot of heat because it's heavily rumored that he's going to be fighting John Molina. Now, so far, nobody has denied the claims. In fact, the news is only about, a couple of, not even 2 days old. Now, when I first heard about, Danny Garcia is going to be fighting Molina, I thought they were talking about Carlos Molina, because I said, okay, all right, the Carlos Molina that fought Paul Williams and the one that fought Erislandy Lara. Well, he is now fighting at 147 pounds and ranked very high by the WBC at 147 pounds. Danny Garcia, 147-pound welterweight champion. I thought, okay, it makes sense. But then I thought about, well, wait a minute. He got that stat rape charge. Go look it up. He was supposed to fight Jamal Charlo a couple of years ago, and then he got booked and deported, and he couldn't get back in here, and he couldn't get back in the States to fight. So now I don't know if he can ever fight in the United States again. So I said, wait a minute, that didn't make no sense. So then I said, well, wait, you got John Molina, but he's at 140 pounds. So then I went and looked up where he was ranked at. He's ranked very high by the WBC at 140, and if I'm correct, the WBC rankings, official rankings for this month, have not come out yet. It is September the 14th, 2016. I'm T Street Controversy. This is T Street Controversy Live. I cover every single major fight live. All links to my social media are right down below in the description box. Now, what happens is if you're ranked in a lower division and you move up to another one, then they'll move you up into those rankings. Into that division's rankings. They won't. They may not give you, or most likely will not give you the same position that you were in. But they will give you, a spot. For example, so. When Canelo had fought Amir Khan, Canelo was the WBC champion, at 160 pounds, or Canelo weighed 155. So since Amir Khan lost, even though he got that title shot at 160 pounds of Canelo weight against Canelo, even though he was defeated, he still is the mandatory for Danny Garcia at 147 pounds. So when you look at the 147-pound division, and you think about, well, he's going to be fighting John Molina, I really don't want to see the fight. It'll be a tough fight, and John Molina's going to get knocked out. I believe John Molina's going to get knocked out by Danny Garcia. But when you really think about it, and let's go look at it a little bit. Let's go look at the 147-pound rankings. You have to think, okay, all right, Andre Berto is said to have priced himself out. Now think about it. You have Danny Garcia, who's got to make at least $1.2 to $1.5 million. Then you got Andre Berto, who in his last fight against Victor Ortiz in the rematch, he made about $750K or something like that. Now that's what's being reported. We're not talking about, because I know people are going to come in the comments and say, oh, well, Heyman be giving them money behind the scenes. That's not. We're going about what's reported and what we know. So let's leave that part out of it. So, of course, Andre Berto would want to raise and fight in a bigger opponent as Danny Garcia. So he would want maybe about $1 million or 1.2 or something like that. But if you really think about it, if the fight's on free TV, the money's not there. PBC doesn't have the money for free TV to pay for those two guys to fight. So therefore, for Andre Berto to get the money that he wants, and Danny Garcia to get the money that he deserves, then it would have to be on Showtime, and then Showtime would have to have the budget for that fight. Now these days, it's very hard these days. PBC was doing it last year, but that shit is long gone. HBO doesn't do it anymore. PBC on free TV is not doing it anymore unless they're PBC /CBS. No, PBC / Showtime special edition on CBS. That's a whole different situation. It's because Showtime was paying, for that fight compared to when PBC was using their own money to put on these fights, and they were just losing money like a motherfucker. So it's hard to get Danny Garcia and Andre Berto to make the same money that they want to make. And Andre Berto, they probably offer him, well, listen, we could probably squeeze you maybe $750K again. And these are just numbers I'm throwing out there. Or $1 million, and maybe he wanted 1.2. Because remember, he made about $3 million for was it $3 or $4 million for Mayweather. So you have to think, he took a big pay cut when he fought Victor Ortiz, but at the same time, he got that revenge and got, a knockout win over the person that beat him before in the past. So for him to fight Danny Garcia, the man deserves to be paid. So basically, they're saying he priced himself out, and whatever the case may be. Looking at the other fighters in the 147-pound division that Danny Garcia could have fought, you think about, well, Amir Khan is injured. Amir Khan's not going to be fighting until next year. You have Lamont Peterson. What's going on with Lamont Peterson? Maybe Danny Garcia versus Lamont Peterson in a rematch. There's going to be a lot of people that say, well, he didn't want to fight. He won't want to fight Lamont Peterson again because he'll probably lose. But also, on the flip end, Lamont Peterson is being rumored to be fighting, of all people, Miguel Cotto at 154 pounds. Or maybe a catch weight or something like that. But I'm pretty much sure it'll probably be at 154. Especially since Lamont Peterson, when he fought Danny Garcia, came into the ring at 165 plus. And then you have to think, well, where's Sean Porter? Sean Porter deserves big money. Sean Porter made big money to fight Keith Thurman. So in my opinion, Danny Garcia versus Sean Porter, that's a big fight. That's a Showtime championship, fight. Then you have let's go down the list. You have maybe a Sammy Vasquez Jr., but then he just lost, and Al Heyman is not going to do that to him, put him into another fight that he could potentially lose. You have Keith Thurman. We don't know what's going on with Keith Thurman versus David Evernessian. Remember, Keith Thurman and Sean Porter, if I'm correct, was under some type of suspension for health reasons, where they couldn't be involved in any type of boxing, something for how many days was it? Like 90, or it was something like that. And of course, people are going to say, well, he should have fought Errol Spence. And if you really look at the rankings, at 147 pounds, you got to think, well, when you're a WBC champion, right, or a champion in any sanctioned body, you have to fight somebody who is ranked in the top 15 if you're not fighting in unification. He can't fight Keith Thurman. Not yet. They're saying they're going to make that fight sometime next year. He can't fight Kell Brook, IBF champion. He can't fight Jesse Vargas. So therefore, you have to look at the guys who's ranked by the WBC. You can only fight those guys. And let's just go through the names once again before we end the video. It's Amir Khan, Andre Berto, Lamont Peterson, Charles Manucci. And then if he would have fought this Charles Manucci guy, people would have said he's fighting a bum. I got to go watch fights. I got to go watch this Charles Manucci guy's fights, to make sure, I'm, like, he's ranked number 4 by the WBC. So I got to make sure I know who this dude is. You got Ray Robinson. You got Konstantin Penomarev, who's going to be likely fighting Kell Brook for soon-to-be likely vacated IBF title of Kell Brooks at 147 pounds. You got Omar Figueroa. We don't know what division he in. His last fight, if I'm correct, he fought Antonio DeMarco above the 147-pound division, and he's got crazy bad hands. And then remember, at number 9, you got Carlos Molina, who I think would be a really big, problem for Danny Garcia. People forget who Carlos Molina is, Dude is a savvy, somewhat dirty, but he can fight. But remember, he's down in Mexico. And Danny Garcia's not going down to Mexico to fight him. You see what I'm saying? So that can't happen. You got Frankie Gomez. You got Cesar Miguel Barrio Anuvo. You got these people at the bottom of the list. I can't even pronounce their names. And then number 13, you got Jojo Dan. Number 14, you got David Peralta, who's ranked. So David Peralta took Robert Guerrero's spot. And then you got Sammy Vasquez Jr. So maybe he will fight, John Molina, who's ranked number 4 by the WBC, at 140 pounds. Maybe it'll be a non-title fight. Maybe they'll get another special exemption. We don't know. But when you really look at the names that were available, you have to think, well, can you really say he's cherry picking? I mean, who else really couldn't have really been? You gotta, you have to think, who else could it really have been? I would have loved to see him maybe against a Felix Diaz. I'm sure they could have got him in there. But anyway, T Street Controversy. This is T Street Controversy Live. I cover every single major fight live. They're saying that the fight's going to be like, what, October the 15th or something like that? But only time will tell. Please subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at T Street Controversy, on Instagram at T Street Controversy, on Facebook at T Street Controversy, and also stay tuned for news on the website I have launching, FightView360.com. And just be patient, it's coming. Please subscribe.